Welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast for women. I am your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. I created the Positive Growth Doctor after years of dealing with societal expectations, self-doubt, and perfectionism. I leveraged my 30 years of experience as a positive psychologist to address limiting beliefs and gain clarity through faith-based emotional wellness techniques rooted in mindset renewal and biblical truth. Subscribe to the podcast and check out the earlier episodes so you don't miss a thing. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. We are officially halfway through our series, Unshakable Daughter, Reclaiming Your Identity in Christ. And I really enjoyed this one, and I hope that you have too. So we kicked off our series with Paul's letter to the Ephesians to dismantle that hustle for worth culture that we live in today. And the goal is to shift our lives from a performance-based mindset to a grace-based mindset. So in last week's episode, we learned how to dismantle spiritual strongholds so we can silence the constant lies Satan is whispering in our ears as women. And I want to pause and take note of something crucial about this performance mindset. When we fall into it, and we do, because we're human beings, we are essentially telling ourselves that we have to earn our place in heaven and that God is only pleased with our good works. But that isn't the case. Before Jesus died on the cross, he declared, "It is finished." Because of his ultimate sacrifice, you are already redeemed. You don't have to earn it. It's a gift. So in today's episode, we're redefining the word abundance. And when I say abundance, I'm referring to the presence rather than prosperity. So today I will lay out what it looks like to live from a place of spiritual overflow. And we'll discover how to shift away from a scarcity mindset and step into the kingdom mindset, where your cup truly runs over. So you can find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app, or you can go to the Positive Growth Doctor YouTube page and subscribe there. If this message blesses you, and I pray that it does, please share the podcast with other women to help them grow on their journey. And don't just stop there. You can extend your reach by leaving a simple review on Apple Podcast. I appreciate you. So let's dive in now to the differences between scarcity and kingdom abundance. So to understand true kingdom abundance, you must define it accurately. Kingdom abundance isn't just your bank account. It's the life to the full promised to us in John 10:10. And true abundance is derived directly from Him, from our relationship with Christ. It is an abundance of peace and joy and unshakable purpose. Even and as we are faced with heavy trials, and they do occur, abundance isn't about having more stuff. It's about having enough God. And kingdom abundance is an internal overflow that ultimately transforms our external reality. But society tells us a completely different story. The world insists that there isn't enough to go around, right? And it tells you to fight for your piece of the pie. And this thought pattern leads straight into the scarcity mindset, and it's very harmful. As a result, we settle into a poverty spirit and a constant fear of the future. Sound familiar? I know it does for me. I recognize that. So, how do we move from a scarcity to overflow when, we're constantly bombarded with Satan in our ear, by that world's scarcity trap that he sets for us? Well, we hear this messaging repeatedly. We just, from all aspects of society, all we have to do is open our computer for the day and boom, there it is. Look at social media and all these places. Now, I grew up in a very, very small town. And unfortunately, you would see that us versus them mentality. That is common, but it was common there at that time. So fast forward many years, and the reality is that we all find ourselves dealing with that exact mindset today. And regardless of our geographical location, no matter where you're from, or where you're at, it's there. And it is central in a society that feels so deeply divided as ours is. The scarcity trap is simple. The enemy uses comparison to create the belief that there isn't enough grace or opportunity for everyone. And if she wins, you lose. But that's all a lie from the pit, right? So how do we heal the poverty spirit? Well, we use biblical principles. That's where we go to. That is where we fight our battles, right? All of us experience spiritual warfare, every single one of us. And the spirit of lack tries to convince you that God is withholding good things from you, or that your time has somehow passed. And we recently explored that very thing, and the very first instance of spiritual warfare, just not too long ago in the Garden of Eden. And I can't remember exactly. I think it was during the last series where Satan convinced Eve of that same lie. So, what is the biblical truth? Well, we go to John 10:10 that I was talking about earlier. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. So let's look at a powerful biblical principle, and it's found in 2 Kings 4 with the story of the widow's oil. And you probably have heard of it, but the widow was completely desperate at that time. She reached out to the prophet Elisha. She was terrified that the creditors were coming after her to take her sons into slavery. Can you imagine, as a mom, what that would feel like? And that way, that would pay off her late husband's debts. And Elisha asked her just a simple question. Tell me what you have in your house. What do you have? And all that she could come up with was this single small jar of olive oil. And Elisha instructed her to go to all her neighbors and borrow their empty jars. And she did. She went inside, shut the door, and started pouring a tiny bit of oil into all of those empty jars. And what do you know? She didn't run out. A miracle occurred. The oil kept coming. She poured into jar after jar. And as she did, her faith grew. And in her obedience, she was able to sell the oil to pay off the family debt and live on the rest. She started out in such desperation. And I know that you know what I'm talking about, that you've been there, thinking that she had nothing and no way out. Yet, what she needed was right there the whole time. It was right there. And our original focus was entirely on what she didn't have. So remember that abundance in the kingdom always begins with what you have right there in your hand, right? So how do you cultivate mindset of spiritual overflow? Well, to experience this, we need to have a massive mindset shift. And the Greek word metanoia literally means changing one's mind. Boy, is that kind of hard? Say, have you ever been called hard-headed? So for some of us, that might be challenging. I think it's challenging for all of us on some level, especially when we're in desperation, right? So we got to start there. And to experience true kingdom abundance, we must change our minds from what we don't have to the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalms 23:1. And as we close today, I want to leave you with 2 reflection questions to pray on this week. Now, the first one is, in what specific area of my life do I feel behind or lacking in? Now, the second one is, how would I act differently today if? How would I act differently today if I truly believed God's resources for my life were infinite? I hope that this episode encouraged your heart today. Let's meet up again next week as we continue this powerful series. Be blessed.
Thanks for listening to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. Be sure to leave a review and tell other women about the podcast. Let's support each other. Find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app and learn more at thepositivegrowthdoctor.com. And be assured, you are not alone on your journey.